Hey everyone, it's a pleasure to be here today. So I'm going to speak around AWS Amplify and building native iOS applications with it. So I'll hesitate first. I'll just say I work for AWS. I am a Principal TAM. I work out of the Melbourne office, but I'm really passionate about iOS and I have a mobile apps background. I actually started in the Objective-C days before there was Arc around, so it was a very long time ago, but I kind of left the space, and quite recently I've come back to it, considering we've got so much happening on the AWS side with iOS. So I'll jump into it. I am a little bit new in this area, so it's to be nice to me. But I've been learning very quickly to get back onto track with all of this stuff because I'm really excited by some of the advancements in Swift UI 2.0 that I've seen and a whole bunch of other stuff. So with that being said, what I do want to run through tonight is what is an Amplify library. So I want to take you through what Amplify is and how it works. I'm going to take you through the libraries that are available for you to use in your application today. And then I'll show you a little bit of live coding. And as I said before, don't judge me. I'm still learning here, but I'll get there in the next couple of weeks, I reckon. So going into what is an Amplify library, I guess AWS Amplify is really about connecting to a whole bunch of backend capabilities that AWS have. So AWS has roughly 200 services today, and it's really complicated to get started as a developer, especially if you're not really familiar with the cloud and it's all new to you. You don't really know where to start. So what we've done is we've broken up AWS services into categories. So it's really easy for you to understand. If you want user authentication, that's one category, and you've got Cognito as AWS service that handles that in the background, but you don't have to learn too much of it to get going. If you want storage, there's S3, for example, and we just simply call the category S3. So, storage. So you can just use S3 without having to learn too much of the detail. But the really cool thing about it is, as you start to get used to interacting with it in the front end, you start to explore the back end, and you can start to dive into those services a lot more comfortably, and that those services are the right ones that you're using for your application. So I find that really cool from my point of view. And I guess Amplify has been around for a while, and it was really for JavaScript frameworks, and we had native iOS supported through a product called Mobile Hub. What we've done is we've kind of consolidated everything, and we're essentially writing support with Amplify libraries for every single major framework and language out there. So starting with JavaScript, we had support for React, React Native, Angular, Vue, Ionic, and then late last year we released support for Android and iOS through Swift. And only about a month ago, we enabled support for Flutter as well. So we're trying to make everyone happy in terms of, whatever you want to build with, we're going to support you guys and girls performing that build. But I'm in particular, my area of excitement is iOS, which is why I wanted to speak to you all today. So diving into the Amplify libraries, as I said, Amplify is a little bit newer for iOS and Android. So we have some of the capabilities in there, but we're still working on other things. And so you're going to see a lot of movement in this space. Amplify is considered generally available for iOS and Android now. So you can use it in enterprise level applications in a production state. But at the moment, we do support 6 main modules. And the first one's really data store. And what it is it's on-device persistent storage that allows you to automatically sync that data back into the cloud whenever a device is online. So it's kind of like a local database, and then you've also got the cloud database as well. And we're handling a lot of the logic that happens between the two whenever there's no internet connectivity, and then the internet suddenly connects back in. So we handle a lot of those edge cases, and we also have flexibility for you to go there as well. In terms of predictions, we've got a huge suite of machine learning services at AWS. You can basically bake your own algorithms, build your own machine learning capabilities, and you can plug that into AWS Amplify and your application that you've built, but we've also got a whole bunch of pre-baked ones like making a prediction based off existing data. Like you could make a forecast prediction, for example, about what the weather is going to be tomorrow. You could use machine learning to work out whether it's a hot dog or not a hot dog in the application if it's an image application and you're doing image recognition there as well. You can do real-time translation of languages, so that's pretty awesome as well. And then on the other side, we can see how users are actually interacting with your application through the analytics module. So that uses pinpoint in the background, and that allows you to basically see events like when the user opens that particular view that you've got in your application, what were the buttons that they clicked there, what was it that they ordered. You can track all of that stuff, and then you can make some decisions on user experience from those analytics. You know, how do we make this even smoother for users, for example? Authentication is quite cool as well. So in the native suite, we don't have like a pre-built UI in a sense that's done natively. So we basically provide the library, and unlike the web side of things, which come with a pre-baked UI that you can choose to use, you basically create the front end for that library, and you can access user authentication straight out of the box, and you can make it federated, and you can hook it up to like Facebook login, Google login, Apple single sign-on, all those services you can tie in very, very easily with a couple of commands. And then on the API side, we've got support for REST-based APIs, we've got support for GraphQL, and you know those can access other services within AWS in the back end, like Lambda. So you could have some code that happens in the back end to do a whole bunch of things that you need for your application. It's fairly flexible in that use case. Or you could even use it to access the database layer. So you've got data store, or you've also got the choice of like maybe a traditional database in the background, and you've tied that in through the API module. And on the storage side, I mentioned image, file storage, all of that happens through S3, and you can bring that really, really simply into your app. Some of the stuff that is in JavaScript as well, that's an addition that they're working on quite solidly to bring into Amplify for native, is augmented reality, pub-sub models, so you can have a messaging style application, interactions if you want chatbots brought in as well, and then the notifications module for push notifications and the likes. So those are some of the extra things that are in the JavaScript library that aren't in native today, but we've been moving really, really fast in this space, so I expect this to change quite rapidly. So I wanted to give you an example in particular. I've talked about the modules. I wanted to go through kind of like predictions, which is my favorite one at the moment in terms of using. So you've got support for your own machine learning models if you've got machine learning scientists at your work, or you just want to play around with some machine learning code that you've seen online. You can build all of that with an AWS through SageMaker, and then you can bring that into the app very, very simply with a couple of commands. We have support for core ML models as well. And the reason why we've done this is sometimes devices aren't going to be able to access cloud functionality. So core ML is really, really important to do on-device processing, so you can still have a good experience if the power of the cloud's not accessible for that particular device. And then all the things that we've pre-baked, we've got image recognition, as I mentioned beforehand, comprehension, comprehend for understanding and analyzing text. We've got Poly, which is very similar to Alexa, so it's a voice-based service. We've got Textract there as well, so if you're doing OCR and things and you want to take apart a PDF and convert that to text, you can use Textract for that particular use case. Transcribe for language conversion, and also transcribe for voice to text, and then translate for language conversion. So you can see that we've got a ton here already. But what I'll do now is I will give you a live coding example. So I've got my nice little Australia slide / New Zealand, so you can see a mixture of things. I'm half, so that's why I settled on doing it this way. But I'll get into what I've built very quickly first. So let me drag off the PowerPoint, and I'll take you to the application that I've only just put together. I've done really bare bones here to show you a live example of how easy it is to plug into an app that you might have. I have basically just set up a UIKit app delegate app, and then I'm using Swift UI for the, why is my Here we go. And then I'm using SwiftUI for the content view. I haven't done anything special. I've just added a VStack in a couple of different fields. So text field, a button, and some text, just because I know that we're limited on time. And then I've added in a pod file. We don't have support for Carthage yet or SPM. That's still in the works, so that's why I'm using CocoaPods. But I know there's a lot of people that are using CocoaPods as well, so it's a good starting point anyway. And this is going to be the shell that we're working with tonight. And what we're going to do in the app is we're going to bring in a translation feature, if you haven't already guessed. You might have seen user import Japanese translation. You can see the simple start of it here. So with that being said, let us start to add Amplify into the application. So I've just gone to the AWS docs, just the getting started guide. I'm actually going to flip into libraries. And you can see all the different services that we support here in the dropdown, but I've got iOS highlighted. So everything's going to be for my particular flow with iOS. And you'll see that we support like async code and non-async and different things that you'd use natively within Swift. So we actually have code examples based on whether you're building an app for iOS 11 or 13 as well. So that's really, really cool. So the first thing is to install and configure the Amplify CLI. To do this, you'll effectively need Node and NPM on your computer. You can find links. Let me stop that. You can find links up the very top of the page that show you how to grab those if you're not too familiar. But that's effectively what we're using as the way to manage the CLI component of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up that script, copy that script in, and I'm going to take it over to my terminal. And I'm going to move it over here. And I'm going to run it through it. There might be an update, so I've already got it pre-installed, but there's a good chance that there's a new version out since I last did this. So running the script's a good thing anyway. So what's happening here is this will allow us to then start to add things into our application through simple commands. So I'll type like amplify add, and then I'll pick one of the services to add that particular service and that particular library to my application. So that's kind of why we use the CLI. It also allows us, once we've added something into a mobile application, great. Let's just sudo it. The other thing is, once we've added features into our application and we've started building that stuff into our application, we can run like an Amplify push command. And what that does is it generates all the resources in the back end on AWS, which is really cool. And we don't have to really deal with AWS console in a sense for that. So we'll go through and install that very, very quickly. Depending on great Melbourne NBN internet. Here we go. And we're here. So the first thing that you'd run, as per the guide, is an Amplify configure command. And what that will get you to do is it will get you to log into the AWS console once, just to set up a new user essentially. And hopefully I'm still logged in. Yep, that's cool. So I go back to the console, I press enter to continue, and then I choose my AWS region. So I want to use the AWS Sydney region, so it's AP Southeast 2. And I'm just going to call this, test Amplify user. So I'm creating a brand new user, and it will bring me into the right view on the console to do that. It's a dummy user, so don't try and use my API keys after the session. Thank you very much. But what we want to do on the next page, and all of this is through the project setup walkthrough as well, is I want to make sure that I've got the Amplify administrator access role. Now that will let me do anything in AWS, but if you were very particular on what you wanted to use, you could say I'm using authentication with AWS, so I want access to Cognito only. So you can do really segregated rights as well, and you can find what rights are needed for what roles through the Amplify documentation too. But everything else I can simply skip through very fast and create that user. Now, I'll get given an access key at the very end. This is what I need to copy and go back into the terminal and continue. I did this morning, actually. Not too sure why. It's because there's a space in what was copied. There we go. So I'll copy the access key and secret key from AWS into the console. There's no space there. Cool. And I will just call this test user. And now what will happen is that my laptop will be able to make calls into AWS to set up and provision things in the background. So I can simply close that tab and I can go back to the documentation, and you can see it walks through all the same stuff. So the very next thing that I need to do to get an iOS project set up with Amplify is to install the Amplify pods. So I'm going to go back to my CocoaPods file, and I am going to add it in straight under pods for translate. And I'll save that file, and I will run a pod install command, and that will download the Amplify libraries to use within my Xcode project. So that might take a little while. I did make all my text large, so hopefully it's come through okay in the stream. Perfect. And it looks like we're in business. Can I see? Yeah. Cool. Yep, it looks like that's done. So that's very cool. And what I'll do next is I will then do an amplify init command on this particular folder and set up Amplify for my app itself in the background. So I'm just going to call this translate, and I'm going to leave everything as default. I'm going to choose my editor as none. It's an iOS application, of course. And just waiting for this last thing to come through, and then I'll show you. So I'm going to choose the AWS profile. I'm going to use that test user that I created beforehand that has admin access to my account. And it's going to start to provision a backend environment for Amplify. And so if I actually go back to my folder for the Translate app, you'll see a couple of new files pop in that are to do with Amplify directly. So what Amplify is doing is it's essentially going to create that cloud environment, but it's going to give me some local code that the CLI interacts with. That's basically CloudFormation, and it will allow me to basically push resources and create resources through the CLI and put them directly into cloud. So you can see it created the AWS configuration file, the Amplify configuration file, and then the Amplify folder, which is going to start to, as I add services in, start to list these services in different folders. And I can open them up in a text editor and alter them more so if I want, but I can also use the CLI to pull things together. So that's all done. Now the next thing that I need to do is I need to open up Xcode again, and I need to bring in the AWS config file and the Amplify configuration file. So I'll just add them in there. And straight after that, I will import Amplify into my app delegate. So I'll go into the app delegate and I'll add it just under UIKit. And the next thing is that we do want to have this Amplify configure action added into the did finish with launch options within the app delegate as well. So we can do a configuration on Amplify itself. So did finish with launch options, it's right here. And I'll just insert the rest of that code underneath. So once I'm done there, I've pretty much got Amplify in my application. What I want to do is I'm going to start to play with predictions. So I'm going to go to the Translate library language module, and you can see the first thing that it asks me to do is run Amplify add predictions. So I'm going to do that in the CLI. And this is going to be, if I go back to the documentation, it's going to be convert language. So I'll pick convert. I'll say yes to Cognito. And I'll just leave all of that stuff at default. So it's going to want some authentication, but I'm going to simply translate text. I'll leave the assets as is. The source language is English. It's the only language I know. So I'm going to go with that for now. And then I'm going to choose Japanese as the target language. And I'm going to say auth and guest users. So I don't want users to authenticate. I'm not going to build an authentication view today. I'm just going to allow my guest users to interact with my app directly. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to actually build all this stuff in the cloud. So I'm going to do an Amplify push command. And I'm going to start to create the prediction asset and the authentication asset directly in the cloud without having to think too much about it. So I'm going to say, yes, I want to continue here. And if I do go to the console, like I don't have to really be here in the console, but if I go into CloudFormation, this is a little secret view because it does take a while to build, but I can see that there's this translate app that's appeared. And effectively what's happening is the code from my Amplify folder for my project has been pushed up into AWS, and now AWS has been tasked with CloudFormation to build up all these resources for my application. So I haven't had to do anything myself really at the end of the day to trigger all of this. But if I go into Cognito, for example, once this CloudFormation's run, now I've just got my water tracker app there, you'll see the test app come in here for translate. If I go into the Amplify area of AWS as well, you can see I've got translate here as well. And so what it's doing is it's building all these assets for me without having to really worry about this as an app developer. And the other thing is you can import assets, so you don't have to in particular rely on setting up new assets, right? So you might have a web app as well. You can simply, in the configuration file, just point to the existing resources that you might have set up for your web version of the application, for example. So that's really, really cool. So let's go back to the CLI and see how it's tracking. So it does take a couple of minutes, but it's going to get there at the end of the day. And what I might do is I might go back to the guide and see what else we can do in the background as we wait for the CLI to finish up here. So what we'll want to do is we will want to add some code in for handling the translation. So I'll go back to my content view, and I might grab the translate text code here to get something up very quickly, and I will put it just here as a function. We're going to go to Japanese, so I'll add this in. We are going to have to import Amplify as well. So what we're going to do is we are going to just do an import Amplify. We should be in business here. I'll just make sure everything builds. And why is the latest version of Xcode defaulting to this iPod Touch? I want it to stay on the iPhone 11. I've also noticed in some of the beta builds for Big Sur, which is on my other computer, I've noticed it keeps trying to default to like the iPhone, I think it was the iPhone SE, which is just annoying. So let's just make sure this all runs. I think we're in business though. And let's just also see, awesome, our resources have been created in the cloud. So what we're going to do very quickly, because I know we've got limited time here, is I'm going to add some code in here to get everything working very quickly. So it's not just the text to convert that we're going to be working with, but there's going to be some converted text that's going to be returned. So I'll put that in as another string. And that should be good here. And what we are going to do is we are going to basically go in here and we are going to add in the converted text fields, which should be blank at the moment. And the action's going to change to be self dot what's that thing called? Translate text. Let's just go like that. And so I'll call that particular function in the code. And the next thing that I want to do is I want to change my converted text to equal the result of the conversion. So I'll go result.text. And I think we're in business. So if I am, what's gone wrong here? Let's have a look. Self.translate text to convert. Yeah, I should probably feed in. I actually don't need to feed in the string text, do I? Can do it if it really wants it. Here we go. What we'll do is we'll run the, oh no, we've got some problems. What is it? Yeah, you're right. There we go. Let's see if it builds. And if we're in luck, insert text. Let's dumb it down a little bit actually. What I'll do is I'll strip this out and I'll go text to convert because we've already got that being written to that variable. And let's give this a go. I told you guys I'm new to it. I'm still skilling up in Swift 2, but give me a couple of weeks and I reckon I'll be there. So we're going to convert some user inputs. What I'll do is I will convert, let's just think of a particular thing. We'll start with Apple iPhone event October, because that's what I'm looking forward to. And we do have an error, but that's okay. We are missing the predictions library. Let me just see what libraries we need, and then I'm pretty sure we'll have this working. So we'll go to the getting started for this, and we'll just scroll down. Yeah, there we go. So it wants us to import these 2 extra libraries. And hopefully they don't need to be in my pod file, but we'll see. Yeah, we're gonna have to put them into the pod file, aren't we? Of course. So what are the pods? Let's quickly get these names down. And you always gotta love live demos as well, don't you? And hopefully this doesn't take too long. Here we go. Just wait for that install to complete and then we'll do a build again. The other cool thing that I really do like about it is that, you know, one of the things I've noticed with different SDKs is usually you get this really huge SDK that does everything, and with Amplify they've broken up into different sections. And so I did find that quite cool in the fact that it helps to reduce my app size. I can bring in only the libraries that I need for particular features. So I was quite a big fan of that actually. And it's getting there. I wonder if it's got the ones that we need to start. I wonder if I can just do a sneaky build in the background. Not yet. I'm always very impatient with this stuff. Okay, here we go. So let's try and run this again. And fingers crossed it works end to end, and then we're in business. I'm really grateful work updated my laptop the other week, because this would be a lot slower on the old laptop. I ended up going from a very old 13-inch from like 2015 to the new 16-inch. Back in the Objective-C days, let's walk to the coffee shop and wait to see if things build. Okay, here we go. Just waiting for it to finish launching. And let's try iPhone event October. Let's try and convert that. Ah, no cigar again. That's great. Let us just have a look, see if we can work this out. I think we're still missing a library. I'll just double check. So we've got Amplify plugins, we've got Amplify, we've got the prediction plugins as well. What else do we need? It's got to be something else that's needed. I'll just see if there's anything that was missing in the app delegate. I'll just quickly check the guide again. Let's have a look very quickly. Yeah, I reckon we're going to be missing those in the app delegate as well. Maybe they're needed a bit earlier for the app. And I'll remove that one. It's duplication. And we will try again. And fingers crossed this time. Hopefully, third time lucky. Here we go. October event, Apple, iPhone 12. No, we've still got the problem. It's not too fun. Let me just have one more look over it. I'll see if it's a quick thing. And that I haven't missed anything major. Frustrating thing is I did have, so no plugins added to predictions category, predictions category.swift. Why is that? I've got the predictions plugin. Oh, of course. There's some extra tries that we need to add in. This is what happens when I rush things around. I try and make time very, very quickly, because I know we're always pushed for 30 minutes, and then I miss a whole bunch of stuff. So it wasn't actually loading in the plugins. Okay. But that's exactly what all this is. It's always trial and error. But it is really easy if you follow the guide. You know, within half an hour you can be up and running with all the stuff, which is pretty cool. And I will test pizza this time. I'll just make it quick. No, we still got errors. Oh no, we didn't. Excellent, it worked. Pizza. I was expecting more problems. Let's go iPhone 12 event. iPhone 12, and we've got Japanese. Excellent. And I'll do one more test. What am I going to do? I'm going to go with let's go with Melbourne. And there we go. I don't know if that's correct in Japanese, but it does definitely not look like English. So if anyone knows Japanese, you can verify how good the translation is. But I've been told by colleagues that it's pretty spot on. So what I'll do is I'll call it a wrap there. I know I've run over. I know I was pushing things really, really fast. But yeah, I guess I'm Melbourne-based. I'm becoming an expert in Amplify, working at AWS. I'm more than happy to talk and help out with anyone that's building applications. And I'm really starting to learn Swift again. So I'm, 8 years later, going from Objective-C to Swift. So wish me luck in that journey, and I'll be part of Cocoa Heads for a fair while from now on, I reckon.
Thank you for that, Matt. You happy just to take a couple of quick questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
The first one is from Franklin, and a big hello to all of our Ugandan viewers. He wanted to know, for the authentication, are the pre-built UI components built for Swift UI? or
Yeah,
is Swift UI coming?
Yeah, I'm hoping it's coming. We have feature requests that you can +1 on the Amplify GitHub page for iOS. What we've done at the moment is we've done a web view that pops in for Cognito that you can leverage. So we don't have a pre-built UI component exactly, but we push to the web and then we come back. I'm certain that we're going to see it soon though.
Cool. And another question from a different Matt. Is the Amplify SDK the same as the older AWS SDK?
No, it's quite different. It was Mobile Hub that we used beforehand, but there were quite a few issues that we ran into with Mobile Hub and kind of matching the functionality on other platforms. So that's why we've brought everything in together with AWS Amplify. And I think if you looked at it about 2 years ago, AWS Amplify and Mobile Hub were very similar, like in the way that they've done things. But with the release in December 2019, it's basically a rewrite now to the whole library to bring parity into to what we're doing with Amplify across the board.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that, Matt.
No problems at all.
So we will take a brief break as we switch from Matt's presentation to then looking at Pete's presentation on melting a sea ice snowflake.